So I'm currently sitting at the Liverpool Riverside. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I just want to talk about some of the third day and fourth day takeaways. The past 2 days have been pretty hectic, so that's why there hasn't been any videos made after those days. They were full-on days, start early, finish late. So let's talk about what happened on Wednesday morning. That was pretty fun. Apparently some guy was swimming in the docking canals, which was not supposed to be the way to do it, I suppose. If you want to explore swimming biomechanics, right, you should probably do it in a lab. No, I'm just kidding. So Wednesday morning, there was a keynote about how do you measure the load on the bodies of the wheelchair users as they're pushing around. And when we want to calculate the load on the joint, we need to know the forces that's being between the point of application of the force and your body. So for example, if you want to know the forces as we are running, we need to know what's happening between the feet and the ground. So in the case of a wheelchair, it's between the hand and the wheel. And there's a lot of practical challenges about how do you actually instrument such a device that you can measure those things. And again, there are some more fancy active vector algebra which I've really come to like and appreciate, especially in the biomechanical field. And after the wheelchair lecture bit, there's more about how you can sort of approximate those measurements of forces and distance. You can sort of get a lot of metrics indirectly by applying the sensors signals in a very smart way, but then as you do that, you have the benefit of being more convenient. You sacrifice some accuracy, and there's also some further adjustments in the analysis pipeline that you will need to do. So again, sadly, nothing straightforward, especially in the field of biomechanics. That's why some sort of lump it with the engineering discipline. Then after the wheelchair one, I went to a strength and conditioning oral presentation. So that's those slightly lower level compared to the keynotes. They're just people presenting their usually preliminary research to share, to get feedback, to get your name out there. And boy, when I say the strength and conditioning research from the biomechanics conference is problematic, it is. It's the things you hear about in podcasts and YouTube video of people complaining about those kind of research. It's you see some of the issues here, which is why I do prefer I guess interventional studies with movements and training and etc. It may be every day of coaches and therapists. It's in a research setting. It's just incredibly hard to do and control, especially if you want to say keep everything else constant, but then we change one variable and see what the outcome is. It's really hard to do those kind of research properly. So I'll just leave it at that. There are some questionable findings, questionable methods and analysis, but to each one's own. But then the best part of the week, in my opinion, so far is got to be the applying biomechanics to support long jump and triple jumpers. They invited a couple biomechanist researchers, I think Graham Smith and Adrian Lees, Adrian Lees, funnily enough, for my jumps with and without arm swings, part of my dunking thesis. Dunking with a ball makes the arm swing harder. I use one of his literature, so that's when the name sort of rings a bell to me, because I don't really know much about the other stuff. But they basically talk about how when the UK, the British Athletics, was trying to set up the biomechanical support program, some of the obstacles they have to have with the officials and the coaches and the kind of relationship you have to build before you can implement a way to sort of track specific metrics. For example, your approach speed into long jump, and they can kind of do the trajectory of the center of mass by taking a side view video and sort of manually labeling the key points on the body. That's called a digitization of the body. It's quite different from the sort of motion capture we have with the sticking markers on the body directly, and that is because the motion capture with markers is considered the gold standard. But when you don't have it, or when you have technical constraints, you gotta work with what you can. And it's really fascinating talk, and also makes me think a lot about the roles, the actual roles of biomechanists. Like I was talking to Dan back at Dunk Camp, and he was saying, it's all really cool, the findings that we have, but it's really hard sometimes to, directly put it to practice, right? In some ways, it's a case of you do not know what you don't know, but in another case, it's a matter of whatever you know, like, does it actually matter? And if it does, can you actually make a change? This is the kind of question I sort of think about, thanks to Joe's podcast, the good episodes, that even if we find, hey, here's the biomechanical factors, the physical reasons why a specific movement pattern or a technical model, for example, the whatever is considered the optimal technique or the bandwidth of optimal techniques. If you know what they are, assuming that it may or may not work for the athlete in front of you based on who he is, training history, injury history, etc., how much can you use a technical model, right? And it's like I have been trained, and I'm also just inherently not too confident with whatever technical model I may find at the end of my PhD to say, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. Like a lot of the things we have at our conference and our research, we go very in depth with our analysis, but then at the end of the day, like how much does it actually translate versus how much helps me to understand what is currently being done. And even if you do understand what's currently being done, again, how much does that translate? That's like something I have to wrestle with in my last sort of baseball pitching research. It's like we approach the pitching movement from the very, very foundational equations of motion, Newton's equations of motion. Again, it's very fundamental, too fundamental in fact that we don't really know how it may translate to performance, right? Because science isn't straightforward. There's no one-stop shop for, hey, you do this, you get performance. If there is, let me know. I guess steroids maybe. Steroids and not being found out. But yeah, so like they were talking about the story of like, hey, we can use biomechanics to track a bunch of things and provide feedback in real time during competition. And it's a long jump finals, and they notice, hey, you're running slower, so you can run faster. And then that's the feedback, literally the feedback the biomechanist gave back to the athlete. The athlete ran faster into the thing, and she jumped further and won the gold medal. But like, shit, you don't need a motion capture lab to do that, right? So it's like, then it's like, okay, is it for the coaches? I suppose, like for the coaches that are interested, maybe. It's really hard. It's like, especially this is what I do not like about the majority of correlation studies. It's like, hey, increased knee extensor velocity helps you jump high. So I guess get stronger knees, and you definitely don't want to tell them to extend higher. Do you tell them to jump faster? Then how is that gonna affect your sort of force output, right? Because changing your momentum requires the application of force, not just with a magnitude, but also through a duration. So if you just say, oh, just cut the duration, then you end up with reduced total impulse, which then you can't change your momentum as much and jump less high. So I guess it's okay. I sort of have to massage that a bit. Correlation studies, when you deal with more physics-based or really key kinetics, so force-based, load-based metrics, it's better because it ties closer to what it actually takes to change your body's momentum, to displace your center of mass. Kinematics or precisions, like I've said many times before, it's part of the story. It's the shape of your body does not determine where your body is going, all right? It's the force you're able to apply on the ground and how you're able to manage your body's momentum. That's what determines where your center of mass is going. So that's why I was like, sometimes I like to troll or shit on the coaches that's just always looking at slow motion videos, and so they refuse to look at other evidence because that's what they see. But the force, like Newton's found it out hundreds of years ago that what you see does not explain why you move that way and how, right? You have to go deeper. You have to go into physics. As much as some of you might have sucked at it, doesn't matter. Physics is physics, right? If you want to gain that level of a fundamental understanding, you need to understand physics and biomechanics. Which is, I guess, another way that biomechanists can help, right? We explain physics, we break it down into hopefully simple terms. At least that's what I try to do in most of my presentations. But so basically that long jump apply session gave me a lot of thoughts and idea as to, you know, what exactly we can offer. And also, I guess another thing is, once you start measuring something and that you know it matters from a physics point of view, like it's a lot of things that actually matters is not at the joint level. It's like, okay, you can measure knee strength, and if you're weaker with the knees, you might want to consider getting stronger knees, but obviously you don't do it to the point that you compromise everything else. But then it's more like how fast you're running, what's the trajectory of your center of mass, how much range of motion of your center of mass can you get. And that's like the macro level goal, but then each athlete have their own way to self-organize to fulfill that goal. And then that's where coaches come in. Be like, okay, we know that guy has a bum knee, so maybe he might need to utilize a bit more hip, who knows, right? And then you try it out, you feel it. That's Bryson, the great baseball researcher / coach. He is also like, you know, we pick a metric in our technical model that we know it's sound, it has a physical basis, and some scientific evidence, it makes sense. And we sort of try to use it to influence the athlete, but we do not cue specifically, hey, you need to do this. It's like, okay, try approaching it with this slight adjustment of your posture, of whatever, or maybe different cues, right? That's when biomechanists have to work with the coach. Because like we all know, they speak different languages, and most of the time they speak past each other. Cue the whole idea of a braking force, because people don't understand directions and vectors and arrows. But that was probably the most thought-provoking session I've been to. So yeah, I'm gonna drop a link to like one of their sort of the only thing they can actually share, because I was like, hey bro, well, great presentation, can I have the slides? And she's like, nah, but you can download this slide, so I'll link it below. But it's called What It Takes to Break a What It Takes to Break a World Record in long jump. So yeah, I'm excited to read that too. I haven't got the time to, and once I've done my presentation yesterday, so it's now Saturday. I was talking about Thursday, I believe, maybe. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I am too tired yesterday. I'm just gonna chill out and watch this night. So that's what I did. But yeah, today is the last day. There are some more presentations going on. I will learn, hopefully, whether I get the grant to support my research by the end of the day, I believe. And I'll probably go out. Whether I get it or not, you know how it is. Also, diet's going down the drain, but you know, who cares, right? I can't really jump, so it's whatever. But yeah, so there are some more presentations. There's a banquet tonight, which will be exciting. I have a set of suit and jacket that's like, it's like from one of those brands that's like, hey, it's flexible, you can do sports in it. So I definitely ordered one of those pairs, so I'm excited to try out tonight. I also met another researcher from Loughborough. She's working on basketball, so I'm really excited to talk to her about that as well, because we both sort of appreciate that basketball is first of all, the GOAT sport. She didn't say that, but I did. But it's so complicated. There's so many components to it. So it's like, when you do research for it, how do you approach it? Most people just don't bother with a defender because it's like you want everything controlled, right? It's hard enough to control one participant to do what you want them to do and make them think that they're doing it naturally. Imagine doing it with two people that's trying to play defense. Like, just not whatever, too hard. So yeah, it's been a great week. A lot learned, very, very tired. I actually had to take a nap at midday Thursday, but definitely looking forward to next year, where it will be in Marquette. So that's the International Society of Biomechanics and Sports Conference in Marquette. And I will not injure my ankle next year, so I can actually get some dunks in in the States. Well, if we can get to use the courts, which I'll talk to Christoph. He's on my PhD committee. He's also organizing the conference, so we'll definitely get some dunk session footage in with the other people, and also to promote our research, right? Because I want to be presenting my dunk research by this time next year. So anyway, that's this might be the last video until I come up with a reel on Instagram to sort of like highlight and summarize all of the points I've learned, but some of the longer detailed breakdowns might come in a later video, might not. I don't really like doing these sort of vlog style videos anymore, but Liverpool is actually a really nice city. Like, I wouldn't mind being here. Look, too many smokers and a little nightclubs. Again, I'm not a big clubbing person, but I'm slamming it tonight. So all right, catch you guys later.